So there's a saying that goes, a gentleman never asks a lady her age, a man his salary, or a student their percentage, to which I might add a fourth, never ask a producer of almost suspiciously clean TV family entertainment what they were producing before that.
Ginger, the very private eye. She gives a man-sized job a woman's touch.
So have you ever heard of a director-turned-TV mega-producer named Schain? Maybe not, but if you were a millennial who grew up on Disney Channel original movies in the early 21st century or mid-budget family films made just before that, which would often air in the same space as those movies, you are probably very familiar with his work even if you weren't necessarily looking out for his name, which was attached to such titles as Don't Look Under the Bed, Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, Luck of the Irish, Hounded, Pixel Perfect, Going to the Mat,
Odd Cop? Crime just got a new worst friend.
A New York City detective solves crimes with the help of his new partner, God.
Right on Track, Return to Halloween Town, Halloween Town High, Read It and Weep, Life is Rough, Go Figure, Minutemen, and oh yeah, a little franchise called High School Musical.
Now I can hardly breathe.
Oh, you can do it, just know that I believe.
And that's all I really need.
Then come on,
Make me strong. It's time to turn it up. Game on.
Oh, and hilariously, right in the middle of all that, he also has a producer credit on Frozen, but not the Disney Frozen, the R-rated suspense thriller Frozen from 2009, the one where people are stuck on a ski lift in sub-zero temperatures overnight, and they need to get down so they don't freeze, but they're like hundreds of feet up, and there's wolves below them, and yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie, but a different show. Anyway, as someone who was way the hell out of actual high school and college by the time High School Musical was a thing, I never actually was paying much attention to this particular person's run of movies. Shocker. So when I actually saw some years later in passing and happening to catch the name Schain in the credits, it jumped out at me with some familiarity, but only just a little, and even when I realized why it seemed familiar later, I made a mental note to look it up and just kind of went on with the night because my immediate feeling was, nah, that can't be the same guy. It has to be a coincidence, right? Yeah, has to be, yeah. Only to then look it up and go,
What's going on here?
holy shit, same fucking guy.
All right, let's talk about it.
Alright, I may have left some foundational context out of this. Let me back up. So, the Ginger Trilogy is an infamous series of drive-in sex and violence movies from the 1970s that are not exactly porn, but also not exactly not porn, belonging to the ignominious last gasp of what were called the roughies. And, I may have to back up a little bit more. Alright, I'm gonna level with y'all. The main reason we're talking about this at all is that we're launching this show with 3 episodes covering wildly different types of content, basically all at once. You can watch the other 2 at the links below, and at the end of the show, at least until YouTube changes the fucking end card system again and messes everyone's shit up, to test out what works. And this is about extreme an example in difference from the other 2, and as strong a test case of how can I talk about certain things on the platform without getting demonetized as I could think of, so yeah.
Oh, please do it to me.
We recording okay?
oh, my freaking ears!
Anyway, by the late 60s to early 70s, even though actual let's just show everything porn had been fully invented and almost mainstreamed until it wasn't, there was still very much a thriving market for so-called sexploitation, or movies that just show lots of skin but not actual sex acts, spread across a whole range of subgenres from sexy comedies to erotic horror to the art house scene. But if we're talking in content or what were you gonna see terms, generally it all fell into 2 distinct, easily understood categories that had existed since the dingy backroom days of 50s stag films. Softcore, which meant what it sounds like and still does, and the roughies, which at one point was probably meant to, sort out your vanilla from your, Neapolitan. But by the age of the drive-in and then grindhouse generally referred to more story content and ambience. These were sexploitation, where the exploitation aspect generally had heavier focus, where the obvious guarantee of nudity and scandalous storytelling was packaged together with guns, murder plots, crime, lurid drama, and usually a lot of nastier stuff. Sexualized violence. The R word. No, the other R word, though plenty of that too, usually, unfortunately.
Generally, only guys look at me like that. But it's a free country.
This country may be free, but this town belongs to Rex. And Rex belongs to me. And Rodney belongs to Liz. And that's the way it is.
Say, which one does the Jungle Bunny belong to?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The Ginger trilogy were not the nastiest or the dirtiest or the most unpleasant, even in modern context of their era, though they are pretty damn hard to watch, but they were, even in their day, regarded as among the strangest, sitting up there with Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, or the myriad Japanese pinky violence features in the dubious pantheon of this whole thing for how bizarrely overthought they felt they needed to be about, pardon the pun, fleshing out their happenings. Conceived as, not kidding, a star vehicle for director-producer Schain's then-wife Cheri Caffaro and pitched as a female answer to James Bond, okay, the first Ginger is basically an undercover private eye story. Caffaro's Ginger is an independently wealthy heiress and thrill seeker who gets into the vigilante crime-fighting game for kicks and is immediately assigned to infiltrate a drug and human trafficking gang that's drugging and human trafficking the daughters of local rich folks just like her, and goes on to seduce and destroy mission against the pimps and enforcers within the organization.
Her weapon is her body, and she puts it on the line. Right on.
I mean, what did you think an almost porno with that kind of setup was going to be about? Well, okay, the gimmick here, and the reason people noticed Ginger enough in the first place for them to do 2 more of these and then remembered them after that at all, is Ginger herself has a special skill apart from that.
I love you. You said you loved me.
She's fucking crazy.
Rex knows you're it.
I know that. But I have my own reasons for getting into this, Jason. I told you that.
Yeah, so our extra special premise is that Ginger has been through a lot of sexual assault and also just being generally wronged by men in her past, and by general happenstance of the plot, pretty much every villain she encounters manages to remind her, in what we would now call a PTSD flashback sense, of a specific incident thereof, causing her to either fly into a rage and straight up murder them, which, no great loss, these are really bad guys, or indulge in elaborate Jigsaw-style torture revenge by proxy scenarios.
British commandos used to use a piece of piano wire, like the one I'm holding here in my hand, to slit the throats of centuries. Tell me about the blackmail, Rodney.
You bitch! Goddamn dick-teasing bitch!
I love you. You said you loved me.
A girl like you doesn't go to bed with a fella unless she thinks he loves her.
You rotten bastard!
You rotten bastard!
What do you think you're doing?
To be clear, this idea here isn't that Ginger signed up for the job to work through her issues, or that she's looking for or eventually finds the same guys who have victimized her at various points. She's more like a justifiable slasher movie killer, but as the protagonist. Things have happened that have given her specific become stabby triggers, and she just keeps running into villains who trip over them. And yes, this is clearly the movie's excuse to cut more rough stuff into the screen time.
She asks for it, and she gets it. She gets it all.
The bad guys are in the strip, smack around and assault women business. Ginger's plan is being undercover as part of the business, and each bad guy gives her a flashback, which then sets up her to kill the bad guy.
You rotten son of a bitch!
Which is even more gnarly than it sounds, because the movie really leans into the idea that Ginger is about as dirty and mean as the bad guys themselves, and her whole deal is very disconnected from what's happening to the women she's supposed to be trying to rescue. She really couldn't seem to care less, and only maybe feels kinda bad when the one girl she hooks up with gets killed off. And also there's one black bad guy who she's very specifically out to take down, and both of them make it a race thing, and yeah.
It ain't money I want, white girl.
What is it that you want, Jimmy?
I want your sweet white ass.
There's a little story I'd like to tell you. Sit down.
The bottom of the hill was dark, and there were bushes. And there were 2 more n***s waiting.
What did you say?
They kept laughing and yelling about white ass. You like white ass, don't you, Jimmy?
Damn right I do.
The
That's racist, man. Yeah, that's just straight ignorant, dog.
But that's Ginger, and a huge hit in 1971 to the tune of $2 million or $15 million in today money. So Don and Cheri did a sequel called The Abductors, which is kind of the same movie again, but this time Ginger is trying to save a bunch of cheerleaders from a different gang of traffickers, and the only part of that one I think I can even try to show you is Cheri Caffaro dancing with maracas. Yeah, so there's that. And that was another shockingly big hit because, look, say what you will, the 70s did in fact end up having a very dark energy, and clearly this husband-wife creative team were dialed into it very early on. So in the same way that Shaft went global for his third installment, Shaft in Africa, Ginger's Part 3 finale, Girls Are for Loving, tried to actually live up to its James Bond comparison by pivoting to an espionage storyline where the government recruits Ginger to battle evil Ginger.
What's on your mind, Ronnie?
Bring your piano wire. My compliments on your actor double now that I know what you really are.
Well, coming from the woman who probably owns the place we're standing in, I'll accept the tribute.
Touché. I see we understand each other. How much do you know about what's going on? Whatever you do, don't kill her. I want that dame spread, not dead. Then we'll find out how much of a woman she is.
My name is Retep, and I am evil.
No, I'm not fucking kidding. In Girls of 11, the US government, or some covert branch of it, is trying to do an arms deal with an unnamed country but are being outmaneuvered by a femme fatale villain who's manipulating the deal in her favor to game the stock market, and they can't seem to get over on her because she's big into showing off her power to get over on men.
Every time I get a wrong answer, or no answer at all, this happens. That's like the rat banging his little head against the maze. I want the names of the American companies initially involved.
Okay, so the Pentagon conscripts Ginger, sure, who has the same hang-up, I guess.
But why? Well, let's just say I like to fuck a lot.
Because if you haven't figured out that these movies where Don and Cheri acted out some stuff and calling it a workday before now...
Yeah, well, you know, I guess it's up to us as parents to be a part of the solution.
Thanks, honey. The safety word is banana.
I love you.
Probably also the kind of person who's surprised at how much the actual porn industry is managed by rich married people from the suburbs. But yeah, they go in, and this is the one we get the Ginger series version of All Out, as Ginger does the full infiltrate and destroy Bond mission thing, although with significant budgetary downgrades from even the lowest of James Bond imitators in the obligatory areas of casino hangout scenes or exotic assassination sequences.
Everything okay? Yeah, they're all bedded down for the night. Security? On the roof and in the corridors outside the rooms. Mind if I join you?
You guys kill me. Not a chance. We'll make sure no one else does either.
But, you know, for a semi-pornographic grindhouse roughie, this is as close to the almost a real movie Jack Horner was trying to make in Boogie Nights, you might say.
Fortunes are made that way. The political possibilities are more subtle.
The secret is keeping the guy up there, not giving in to him.
I wasn't under the impression you were a virgin.
You get henchman battles, stealth sneaking scenes, gunfights, someone's idea of karate fights, Ginger against anti-Ginger in whatever country this is supposed to be. boats versus plane chases, exotic location sequences, hero fights their evil double stuff, and even say the title of the movie catchphrasing.
You see, Ronnie, girls are for loving.
Yeah, no, it really is like watching the so trashy you want to shower and sandblast your skin off dubiously consensual 70s porn version of a C-tier Marvel movie. Don Schain and Cheri Caffaro would make a couple more non-ginger movies in a similar vein before divorcing in the early 80s, at which time she mostly got out of film work other than producing a few low-budget horror productions and apparently doing a voice for an episode of Extreme Ghostbusters in 1997. It's not really clear which voice she was, and no one's really heard from her since. Don Schain himself remarried and moved to Utah, where he reinvented his filmmaking persona from porn mogul to jack-of-all-trades movie maven, and ended up becoming basically the kingpin of the state's local production scene, getting a bunch of development deals and studio space built up that ultimately secured the lucrative family TV production arrangements with the Disney Channel that culminated in his very late in life High School Musical success. When he passed away in 2016, the State Film Office of Utah memorialized him as though a head of state had died.
What about Ginger?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I can't speak to whatever happened for Donald Rodney Schain as a guy or filmmaker between the Ginger films and his time at Disney, and nobody seems to have caught up with Cheri Caffaro in years. I'm not going to put any judgment on people for making unseemly movies, especially when I know for a fact of history there are both much grosser productions than these made by otherwise perfectly decent people, and substantially more nice, clean, acceptable productions made by absolute monsters. Passing any kind of moral judgment on the work isn't what makes the guy behind High School Musical did a trilogy of trashy, violent, borderline porno grindhouse movies in the 70s an interesting fact of film history. The guy behind High School Musical making a trilogy of trashy, violent, borderline porno grindhouse movies in the 70s is what makes the guy behind High School Musical making a trilogy of trashy, violent, borderline porno grindhouse movies in the 70s an interesting fact of history.
Logical.
That being said, unlike almost any other movie you might see me talk about going forward on this show or anything else I've mentioned before, yeah, it is really difficult to suggest anyone in 2024 should actually watch the Ginger movies as anything other than morbid academic curiosity. Apart from there being very little entertainment or aesthetic value to them, they aren't very well produced, the acting, directing, etc. aren't very bad in a good way.
Ginger, the very private eye, throws them a few curves. Very low and inside. She works up close.
Even so far as the intended effect goes, I would hesitate to call any of this sexy, even without the qualifiers of not even a little bit interested in the discussion of where kink and fetishism end versus where glorifying assault begins. So yeah, if you must, view with caution, and don't say I didn't warn you would be my parting words on this franchise.
No wonder you're hiding backstage.
But yeah, so that's Ginger, the almost porn origins of the creator of High School Musical, a movie that is grimy, nasty, probably best forgotten, and definitely exists.
You rotten son of a bitch!
So hey guys, I hope you all enjoyed this presentation of This Movie Exists. Since it's pilot day, we're launching 3 back-to-back-to-back debuts all at once, so please check out the other 2 showing right now, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.